A matter of family. Cliff woke slowly, feeling something was off somewhere, but not quite awake enough to identify what was wrong. He smelled coffee. He glanced over to the other side of the bed. Empty. He smoothed his hand over the sheet. Cold. Davy was up, had been up for a while, evidently. Cliff sighed. It was going to be like that, was it? Reluctantly, he tossed the sheet off and got up, visiting the bathroom on his way to the kitchen. Might as well get it over with. At least this morning, he'd woken to find Davy still here. Sometime after his 50th birthday, Davy had started taking off for days at a time, usually around or on the full moon. Cliff had no idea where he went or what he did on what he'd started calling Davy's monthlies. He tried to ask Davy when he'd returned after the first disappearance, but Davy just ignored him, answering with a, "I'm home now, aren't I?" Considering he always came back quiet and subdued, Cliff wasn't sure if he wanted to know the details. He'd managed a well, "Don't bring home anything contagious," which Davy also completely ignored. Cliff could hear rustling and banging from the other side of the kitchen wall. He poured a cup of coffee from the half-full pot and quietly opened the door leading into the shop. Sometimes it was less a convenience and more of an annoyance, living on the premises of the shop. He wasn't sure which one it was this morning. He leaned on the doorway for a moment and took a small sip of his coffee, looking at the model car display, which had been completely disassembled and lay strewn about on the floor, bits and pieces occupying whatever flat space there was available. "I know you're there." "Okay. What do you want?" "Nothing. Just wanted to see what you're doing." "Well, now you've seen it. You gonna redo this display? Again?" "Need to keep it fresh." "I see. You gonna just stand there and watch me?" "Sure. Why not?" Davy slammed down the cardboard he'd been trying to unsuccessfully bend into a 90-degree angle. "For God's sake, Cliffy, you know it makes me feel insecure when you stand there in judgment like some almighty, all-knowing whatever the fuck. Just go away." "I'll be leaving in a few minutes." "Fine. Fine. You gonna stand there for your few minutes watching me?" "Maybe. You're kind of cute when you're angry." "Oh, you think so, do you?" "Don't you have a new theater production schedule coming up soon?" "Don't know. Nothing good out there lately." "Isn't Pirates of Penzance coming up this summer?" "Ooh, men in tights, just what every good gay dreams of." Cliff sighed. "Davy, honestly, I don't know why you make us go through this over and over. You know I have to go help out with my mom. I'm only going to be gone for a week, just like last time and the time before that. My mom won't be around forever. I should probably spend as much time with her as I can." Davy cut him off abruptly with a wave of his hand, nearly flinging one of the cars at him before realizing what he had in his hand. "God damn it! Your sisters live there in Cincinnati. Let them take care of your mom. You send them money every month as it is. Let them hire a nurse if they need a break." He took a breath and lowered his voice. "Flying round trip from Texas to Ohio every 6 weeks is ridiculous, expensive, a waste of time." He was pleading now. "Your mother doesn't even know who you are at this point. She doesn't recognize anyone. If she could understand what you were doing, she'd tell you to stop, and you know it." Cliff shrugged. "Regardless, it's something I have to do. I promised I would help out, and I will. That's what family does, Davy. They help each other out." It was Davy's turn to sigh. "Right, like I help you out by minding the store while you're gone." "Exactly." "Great. So when does someone help me out, huh?" Davy raised his hand in his forehead. "Oh, gee, I guess that part got missed. Again. Story of my life. Go. Go to your mother's. Go help your family." He said the last word with venom in his voice. It was another source of contention between the two of them. Only one of them wanted to get married, and it wasn't Cliff. An exasperated sigh from the doorway was his only response, which was fine, just fine. He'd mind the shop, just like he always did. Davy gazed in dismay at the mess in front of him and glanced at his watch and saw He had 10 minutes to straighten everything up before the shop was supposed to open. Listening to Cliff start up his car and back out of the drive, Davy shoved everything against the wall, threw a tarp over the whole thing, and made a large "under construction" sign, which he taped to the tarp. Forget it. Maybe he might have a bit of fun on his own, seeing as how he'd be alone. Again. Just another day. He'd just returned from lunch and was getting everything together to head for his 1 o'clock intro to biology class when the office phone rang on his desk. He couldn't remember the last time he'd gotten a call on this line. He didn't even know anyone who had this phone number. He frowned at the phone while it rang 3 more times before he finally picked it up. Hello? Hello, yes. Is this Professor Fitzpatrick? Yes, it is. Who is this? And what do you want? I'm going to be late for a class. This is Pamela in administration. Mr. Rodriguez would like you to come to his office. Well, it'll have to wait. I've got to go. Someone else will take your class this afternoon, Professor. Please come to Mr. Rodriguez's office as soon as possible. What the hell was this all about? It didn't sound good. Now? He managed to ask. Yes, sir. Please. Fine. I'll be there shortly. The line disconnected. What the hell? He was alarmed now. Mr. Rodriguez was Brian Rodriguez, dean of the university. He remembered his initial interview with the man 3 years ago when he had applied for this job. Beer belly and balding, completely unremarkable. Probably held an associate degree in economics or office administration from the local tech school. And why? Was someone else teaching his class? That was the most alarming thing of all. He put the books and handouts back on his desk and headed to administration. He saw Pamela's head peering down the hallway as he turned the corner. She ducked back out of the way a split second later. Definitely something wrong with this picture. Pamela was seated at her desk in front of the dean's door, looking as if she had been there, sitting there, for the past 4 hours. She raised her head as he approached, but did not meet his gaze. Please have a seat. Mr. Rodriguez is on a call at the moment. He'll be right with you. Oliver glanced at 2 hard wooden chairs behind him. The chairs students sat in while waiting to see the dean. No thanks. I'll just stand if you don't mind. The secretary just shrugged. After an interminable 10 minutes, which Oliver had to endure as he stared at nothing, the door finally opened. Mr. Fitzpatrick, thanks for waiting. Please come in. Mr.? Offended, Oliver strode into the dean's office for the second time in his employment there. That's Professor Fitzpatrick. Mr. Rodriguez. What's this all about? The dean sighed. Have a seat, Oliver. Oliver sat down in the only chair available, another one of those damned wooden chairs. I really don't appreciate being called in here like some schoolboy who's in trouble with the principal. I'll be brief then, the dean answered, settling back in his chair. Patted, Oliver noted with disdain. You've been teaching here how long now? 3 years this September. Why? Do you remember a student by the name of... The dean looked at his computer monitor. Barajas? Mark Barajas? Oliver frowned in concentration. Was that one of the students from his psychology classes? Oh, yes. First semester I taught physiology. He was a transfer from one of the local high schools. Brilliant student. Did very well, as I recall. Why? What about James Calderon? Oliver looked hard at the man sitting across from the desk. I don't know. I have at least 100 students in each class. I teach 3 classes a day, 4 days a week. I can't recall every single student I've ever taught. What was this all about? The dean continued. Henry Diaz? Gabriel Espinoza? Sergio Gutierrez? No? Well, let me help you refresh your memory. They have all attended 1 or more of your classes. Fine. So what? The dean scowled. Do you offer tutoring services to your students? Oliver sat still in his chair. Certainly, he replied. His voice cracked and he cleared his throat. Certainly, he replied with more conviction. Of course I do. All instructors do. Some students need more individualized attention, instruction. I believe that is part of the job description? You're correct. Tutoring, if necessary, should be offered to students who are in need of assistance with their coursework and studies. In your office, here, on campus. I believe that, too, is in the description of tutoring services. The dean crossed his arms and looked directly at Oliver. He was stunned. How did they know? He could think of nothing to say. The dean went on. It is against school policy for instructors to develop any kind of personal relationship with a student currently enrolled in one of their classes. You are aware of that, aren't you? Oliver had to say something, but his mind was absolutely blank. He felt his head bobbing up and down in agreement and stopped it with a jerk. We have started receiving questions from parents. They want to know why their kids are having dinner at your house with you, alone. They wanted to know if that was normal, a normal thing for instructors to do. At first, we just thought it was a one-off, some special circumstances, or maybe a student trying to cause trouble because they received a poor grade in your class. But we kept getting more questions, about one per semester. After the third complaint, we started investigating. We contacted your previous employer. Where was that? Oh yes, Hamilton High, wasn't it? We found out you like bringing students home with you for much longer than just the nearly 3 years you've been teaching here. Isn't that right? Don't bother replying, the dean continued, waving his hand at Oliver, who was glued to his chair. We aren't looking for an explanation. We are terminating your contract with the university, effective immediately. You have two options here. You can give me your resignation now. We will give you 4 weeks of severance pay, and we won't submit anything to the authorities. Oliver managed to swallow. And what is my other option? We will terminate your employment effective immediately on the basis of impropriety and possible criminal conduct. You will not be entitled to any severance pay, and you won't be eligible for unemployment benefits. You'll lose all of your medical insurance. A complete record of will be part of your permanent record, and a copy will be submitted to the district attorney for review. Oliver shook his head. I didn't do anything wrong with those kids, and you know it. This is completely unacceptable. Don't. Please, Oliver, just stop. This is not open to discussion. I'm just waiting on your decision. How are we going to proceed here? He'd had enough. Standing up abruptly, he glared at the man in the padded chair. Don't call me Oliver. Only my friends call me that. You may address me as Professor Fitzpatrick, as is my official title. Neither option is acceptable to me. However, he held up one finger as the dean started to interrupt. As the university has seen fit to make a determination on something this important, without any input from me, I will choose your first option. You may make the deposit of my 4 weeks' pay immediately. The dean exhaled in relief. I'll let the provost know. I have a separation agreement here. It goes over all the details we just discussed. He slid a single page across the desk to Oliver and placed a pen next to it. As soon as you sign this, the termination will be final and the payment released. Oliver looked at the paper and, not even bothering to read it, picked up the pen and scribbled something close to his signature on the line above his name. Tossing the pen on the desk, he turned towards the door. I trust this concludes our business here. Just one more thing. Oliver's hand paused as he reached for the doorknob. You will never teach in the state of Texas again, at any institution, on any level. Is that understood? Then what exactly am I supposed to be doing for a living? I suggest something along the lines of research, a lab somewhere. Make it your mission. Help us find a cure for cancer, or whatever. You have several degrees in the physical sciences. Do something different. You're intelligent, educated. You'll find something that's a good fit for you. Anything but teaching. Oliver looked at the desk. How are you going to enforce something like that? The dean smiled at him. Everyone contacts previous employers in teaching. Don't be naive. If we are contacted by any kind of school, he left the rest of his sentence unfinished. Nothing else needed to be said. And if someone contacts you from a lab, what then? Are you going to give me a glowing recommendation? Oliver couldn't help the sneer from his voice. The dean just shrugged. We will let any lab know the dates of your employment here at the university and your most recent salary, and that you had resigned to pursue a career in research. No further information will be provided. Oliver considered that for a moment, then he turned back to the door. I'll just go get my personal items from my office. Oh, that won't be necessary. We've already cleared everything out. I believe your effects are in a box at Pamela's desk. Oliver thought he couldn't be more stunned. He'd been wrong. He left the provost's office without saying anything else. The moment he passed Aunt Pamela's desk, and wasn't he thrilled that he would never have to look at her face again, he saw a large cardboard box labeled Fitzpatrick on the floor. She wasn't there, probably hiding in the bathroom until he left. So he picked up the box, glanced inside, everything appeared to be there at least, and exited the university administration building for the last time.